Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of GHB / Tempest Trial Unit Tier List, I suppose. This time we'll take a look at Spring Loki, which is our Tempest Trial unit coming up this night. And well, let's get started. So Loki doesn't come with a very interesting kit or any very interesting weapon, though Beguiling Bow is a good change from what the Summer 1 banner weapons was, weapon-wise. The first banner for Summer had those weapons called like Death Harpoon, don't remember the rest, I guess Melon Crusher, which gave you 2 to all stat if your HP was at full, and you would take damage after the battle. This is the other way around. It relies on your enemy's HP, which is great, because honestly those weapons are fairly underrated. 2 to all stat can make a lot to help you. That said, a bow unit doesn't really use that all too well. If you're, on the other hand, using something like a lance unit, say Shiro for example, who has a good speed stat, well, decent, good attack, good def, and workable res, 2 to all stat becomes really good because then your speed becomes relevant and decent enough for something like null follow-up to take effect, something Loki does not actually have access to, sadly, considering she has the perfect type of stat line for this type of weapon. But oh well, that's a shame. At the end of the day though, since her attack is not too good, that would probably not work too well in her favor anyway. Other than that, she comes with Flyer Formation at 4-star. This is our first unit with Flyer Formation at such a low rarity. That said, while she does have this, well, Flyer Formation is a bit limiting, isn't it? Still, it's pretty decent on a Flyer team, as obvious as this is, and can definitely help you in the long run. As for our first merge gives you an extra point of HP, speed, and res, which honestly is kind of depressing. Again, our main problem is our attack stat. I forgot to add the +1 to Loki on the second screenshot, but frankly, this was a pain to set up anyway. Honestly, this unit is not in Unit Builder, so I had to manually make the screenshot, which you can imagine was not fun or pleasant in the least. Oh well, it is what it is. Thankfully, Zanek definitely came in clutch on that one, because otherwise I probably would not have bothered with this video, because it requires Unit Builder a lot, and if it wasn't for the fact that he gave me a screenshot of all 5 units, I would not have bothered. This literally took me like an hour or 2 just to make the builds and make them look good. So, you know. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, she does not get attack because her speed and res are at 8, while her attack is at 7 at level 1. Sadly, it takes her stat at level 1 in consideration and not her stat at her max, which she basically got F-Linned in that regard. F-Linn should also have gotten attack and speed and definitely needed the attack and didn't, because instead she got speed res. And yeah, an extra point of speed on an extra point of res, which res was like her worst stat. Actually, yeah, it was a worst stat. Which, wow, it's almost like this is a repeat of that time. Yeah, it sucks. So, yeah, she's a bow unit, a flying bow unit. So obviously the comparisons are not many. That said, while it is true that she does struggle in the sense that her attack is bad, she also doesn't struggle in bulk. When it comes down to bulk, she completely floors Inoka, and that's great because Inoka's bulk is her biggest problem. She's meant to slay armored units, but despite her being meant to kill armored units, she actually struggles to kill them. Why? Because her bulk is just that bad. A lot of armored unit can just literally one-shot her and take 1 of her arrows. Not 2, of course, but at the end of the day, if Inoka cannot take a blow, she basically gets one shot and doesn't kill anything. There are so many armored units that hits over 50 defense nowadays that her bow just doesn't cut it. Even if you give her a, you know, attack speed bond, which is obviously what she comes with, she still struggles because 51 attack with, you know, her weapons just jumps up to 76. Look, Surtur takes like 25 damage. And if he has DC, he one-shots her. Great. And you have similar situation for basically every other armored unit. It's really rare that she's going to just one-shot one of them. And it's a shame. It really is a shame, because Inoka, if she had just a bit more def, like 4 or 5 points of rest moved into defense, she would have been a lot better. Being able to take a blow would have actually helped her hit desperation, and therefore she would be better. But as it is, despite being able to get a boon in attack, I'd say she's actually worse than Loki. Because Loki can just get hit, get in desperation, get in brazens. As boring as that sounds, it's still an option. Though double brazen will be a struggle for her, you can still run life and death and then a brazen seal and still be fine. She has that much bulk. It's kind of stupid that she has that much bulk, but I mean, oh well. Like I said, if you run life and death, your death drops to 22 and rest to 21, but you still have 39 health, and on top of that flyer buffs, so 67 bulk is pretty solid, even without merge. That's 67 bulk, 66 for res. If you get your first merge in, that becomes 69, wait no, 68 for def and 60, wait, you know, 68 for def and 67 for res, which means you can tank even a Grima who's plus 10 when Loki is plus 1, despite having life and death. That's insane, and something that Inoka can only wish she could do, honestly. But outside of that, being able to hit desperation easy, still being able to run life and death, really helps her. But at the end of the day, Summer Takumi is just impossible to beat. 35-35 offensively is insane. And the fact that you have just access to IV on top of that just completely breaks Loki. At the end of the day, Takumi is attack plus Takumi is basically Loki with 7 more attack. On bow units, that's huge. Because, I mean, Brave Bow, that's 14 more damage. And if you quad 28 more damage, that's kind of massive, isn't it? And speed-wise, I mean, they're basically the same. Even if you plus 10 Loki, her speed is already good enough as is. You really don't need all that much to make her work, so it's kind of iffy at the end of the day. At the end of the day, if I'm being honest, I'd say obviously Summer Takumi is the best bow flyers. There's literally no challenge for him. No one come close. The closest we have is probably Fjorm, and Fjorm is green, which is a terrible color and makes her struggle against some of the stronger reds, while providing nothing against the very, very many green units, and helping her KO stuff that are not really threatening, which would literally be listed in one unit, which is Brave Actor. Literally, Brave Actor is the only really threatening blue unit, sorry. And she kind of counters him, but it's really just a kinda at the end of the day, because her damage output is good, but unless you run Brave Bow, you'll struggle, and if you run Brave Bow, you run into a wall if you deal with anything that's red, and if it's green, well, I hope you have Attack Plus. If you have Attack Plus, you should be able to do just about as well as Summer Takumi, but it's kind of iffy. Plus, the best part about Summer Takumi is it can run literally any breaker skill, so if if you have, say, a unit in particular that becomes a problem to your team, you can just run a breaker for them. and typically you'll be able to break them down. The only few units that this won't really help with are like Steady Breath Zelgius, because he literally kills you after the first 2 arrows, so it doesn't matter if you only hit once or twice. And Surtur, because Steady Stance 4 is a bitch to deal with. But other than those units, it typically just wipes off whatever is in front of you. And Fjorm can kind of do the same, just a bit less bulk where it matters. I believe the Def and Res is flipped for Takumi and Fjorm, and that kind of hurts a little. Not by much, but it's still worth mentioning. So yeah, Loki is better than Inoka in my opinion, but worse than Summer Takumi, kind of in the middle. As for builds, well, it's quite simple. Again though, her attack is definitely shaky, so be careful. The best thing, and the thing that actually saves her attack the most is, well, goads. She's mostly good in a goat team. If you use her outside of a goat team, you're gonna struggle. You're definitely going to struggle. As for the first set, you can also run Mystic Boost. It's a good idea if you want to keep your HP higher and also take a hit. That way you don't have to run a Heavy Blade, and instead of running Heavy Blade, you can definitely run something like a Brazen, a Bond skill. If you combo this with Aerobatics, that also works pretty well, or if you don't, well, just run attack speed 2 or attack plus 3. Honestly, attack plus 3 is probably the best choice here. She already has way too much speed, let's be honest. So, yeah. Pretty solid unit overall for that side. As for the other one, that's the very shaky guard bow set. Someone was saying how I should really work on one, and frankly, I wouldn't like, not really. But hey, if people want to have a guard bow set and want my opinion on it, this is probably the best way to go about it. Really, the main problem with this is just you need so many skills to work. You don't have guard, well, you're going to get bodied by any bold fighter range unit, especially something like Kagero, like Halloween Kagero, Halloween Jacob. So you have to run Steady Stance 4 just for those units. Dual range is required against mages using Blade Tome, because if you don't have this, what's that? A Blade Tome unit? Sorry. That's just kind of what it is. It sucks, but it is what it is. Guard Bow will do fine against mages at the end of the day, because if they rely on Blade Tome, they have literally no power. 90% of the time, unless they have a Pref Blade Tome, they're going to get nothing out of it. Because they're going to have like 52 attack or something like this, and they won't be able to get their buffs in. Which, yeah, that's a yikes for me, dog. And Steady Stance 4 is there to just block, as I said before, Bold Fighter. Be careful though, it doesn't completely save you, because yes, Jacob can still proc on your ass despite Steady Stance 4. It is true you'll have 51 defense against him, so you should not die from him, but it is still worth mentioning, because if he runs Brave Bull Bold Fighter, he can just hit, get hit, proc. Because he has done 3 hit with Bold Fighter, that's 1 charge per hit, despite the guard effect. That's dangerous. So, yeah, definitely worth mentioning. As for the last set, and obviously the most obvious, the Brave Bow set, this is what I consider the most ideal setup. If you're using her in a flyer team, obviously flyer formation should be what you run, not aerobatics. But the logic is still the same. You want to teleport to ally unit and then use them as stepping stone for attack def bond. You can either use own, fortifies, or goads. Goads are probably ideal actually for this, because then you can just stack a few goads, make your attack work a lot more, because let's be honest, 2 goads would push you to 60 attack, and a third one would push you to 64 attack. Now, 3 golds, probably not happening. 2 golds, very likely to happen. So, you know, still worth mentioning. But, yeah. Guidance is also a good option if you want to use her with aerobatics, so you can just literally, for example, say you have an armored unit like Brave Hector, you can just teleport on top of him, kill a unit that's far, and then just, for example, aerobatic guidance your armored unit in front of Loki to protect her from incoming threats. Just an idea like this. You can do this with many other situations. It's just, this is the first one that came to my mind. As for her placement on the tier list, she is S-. It comes to little to no shock. Loki is a bit of a weird case because flyers tend to be very aggressive units. Honestly, if we're talking about which units are the most aggressive in the entire meta nowadays, it's easily flyers. Like, there's no comparison. Yes, you can make the case that cav units are very aggressive, but they don't really have access to many skills that makes them very threatening, like sturdy impact, or trying to think real quick, or null follow-up, or bold fighter, or vengeful fighter, or aerobatics. Aerobatics is insanely annoying to deal with, because it's the type of skill that gives so much more mobility, and then if you can't take it, well, you're just dead. That's it. And if you're dealing with a full flyer team in AR, think twice. Think twice, because they could just have all of them have gold and Air Force. Air Force basically gives, well, flyer formation and aerobatics to every flyer around them. You can imagine the problem when it's a bunch of flyers and they have all golds. Yeah. And the unit that uses Air Force also has flyer formation, so she can just teleport with literally 3 golds buffing her. Yeah. It can be really threatening and annoying to deal with. It's honestly, as far as I know, it's the most annoying type of team setup right now for AR. It's just six flyers lumped together, and you have to do your best to even, like, just split them apart. It's really annoying. Like, for example, I spoke about Wings of Fate Inoka, which has pretty attack also, but then you had 3 golds, you had Swift Sparrow, or Deathblow 4, and yeah, suddenly you have 20 more attack, huh? Yeah, this is basically what happens. So yeah, definitely painful at that point. So yeah, Loki is easily an S- unit. Gem Key is definitely better in general, though if it comes down to modes like AR where movement is key, Loki probably will do you better. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about Loki. Hope you learned something new, and I'll see you later or in the comments. Have a nice one, everyone.